We all know the Raiders' offensive line was the big problem from Sunday, but are there some wholesale changes on the way? That plus more on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for September 23rd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate that. And as of Monday, Fox 5 in Las Vegas, right? The Silver State Sports Entertainment Network, SSSEN. Yeah, you can find us at 12:30 in the afternoon on that channel. I did find out if you have DirecTV, well, you don't get that channel, but you can check it out by way of their YouTube page as well. Either way, my man Ari does a fantastic job behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we definitely shout him out. We appreciate him. And again, adding more duties to his plate. But again, he can handle it. He does a great job, and we appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. Plenty of calls and texts. Great feedback to get to coming up in segment number 3 as we close out the show. Segment number 2, maybe a sense of calm from one Kirk Morrison, who joined my radio show on Monday and kind of brought us back to reality of what this season is so far, as the Raiders are 1-2. And then I'll add my commentary to it as far as why the game was such a disappointment that the Raiders lost on Sunday, not because it was the Commanders, but the state of the Commanders on Sunday afternoon. So we'll talk about that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it just has to do with, well, the big uglies, which are the offensive linemen, and what the Raiders are going to do moving forward. We'll jump right into that after you hear from the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So, off top, I thought I'd pass this along. This comes from Ryan McFadden from ESPN by way of Next Gen Stats. He says, through 3 games, here's how the Raiders' starting offensive line has fared in pass protection. Left tackle Colton Miller, 11 pressures and 2 sacks in 120 block snaps. Left guard Dylan Parham, 15 pressures, 1 sack in 120 snaps. Center Jordan Meredith, 8 pressures, 1 sack, 120 snaps. Right guard Alex Kappa, 11 pressures, only through 82 snaps, as he's played the last 2 games. And then right tackle DJ Glaze, 16 pressures, 4 sacks through 119 snaps. He missed 1 snap on Sunday. JPJ has given up 5 pressures and a sacks in 38 block snaps when he was going up against the Patriots in week 1. So that's how the Raiders stack up right now as a unit. We all know that they need to do something. I'm assuming getting Jackson Powers-Johnson a full week of practice is going to help that, but don't take it from me. Take it from Pete Carroll. Obviously, when we met with him on Monday, there was only a couple of us there. Most of the beat writers were still flying back from Washington, so it was only a handful of us there. And, of course, top of mind for us was that offensive line. Check it out.
So, Pete, the offensive line, you looking at any potential changes, or are you going to go with what you have?
We're working on some stuff. We're going to want to see JPJ come back to action and get back involved. We have to, in all phases of it, we got to get off the football better and make more of the running game. There's not enough happening there to act on the play pass game, and we're just not getting enough. So we just got to keep working it. We got the guys we got, and there's and we need to keep developing and keep building on it.
So would that be competition at the right guard spot or the entire line, possibly?
We're working at the right guard spot. Our young guys they'll get their turn sometime, but they're not ready yet. So we have what we have, and we got to make our guys do better, and we got to fit it together better than we have.
Pete, last week in terms of the Chargers game, you said that you were not going to basically scrap the film. I'm curious as to what is that differentiating factor between when you decide to do that versus.
I was basically not going to what?
Move past the film, like you weren't going to scrap the film. You said that after the Chargers game. We're at such an early stage of developing of our team that we have to keep building. We have to go through the hard stuff, learn the hard way, learn the hard lessons. Yeah, it's a thought. You throw the film out and don't look at it. But we have too much to teach and too much to learn. And so this is just part of the process, And it would have been nice to, get 2 wins out of these 3 or get them all. But it didn't happen yet. So we've got to keep working at every phase of our game.
we didn't turn it around from Monday night relative to how they did. They had the big break and they took advantage of it. I overdid it. I tried to make sure that we had our legs. I feel like I didn't do the right decision making to get us right. And because fundamentally we did not play as well as we have. And so, it just happens. You got to take a shot at it. That game coming Monday night or after a Thursday nighter for the other team has historically been very, very difficult. And that's the schedules. We got to play it, and we need to respond better.
What do you think the issues are special teams?
I go back to the whole team, and that's why this is my responsibility. The whole team fundamentally did not play well. They did. I'm going to give it to Danny too. I thought his team played exceedingly well in all phases, and Larry Izzo, their special teams coach, used to be our special teams coach. He got those guys ready to go, and they whipped us on the returns, so it's a hard game, but I'm going to take it. I have to do a better job of getting these guys ready to go in the matchups that we have, regardless, and it showed up in special teams quite clearly. Fundamentals, just being low and leverage and attack and defending blocks and beating the blockers on our coverage, all of that. And it was the too many big plays that lead them to an easy win for them.
How do you keep the players really locked in and focused and not get discouraged by an outcome like that, knowing they want and expect more?
This is all I've ever known. This is what you do, and you have to deal with it. And we have really clear messaging from the beginning to deal with challenges and all of that. We also have tremendous leadership and from our club in the locker room. Max couldn't be more a part of the messaging and being vocal and challenging guys and to play up. Max has played extraordinary football right off the bat, which we expected, but his leadership has been even better. And so it's with that. It's leadership, it's direction, it's system, it's enduring the setbacks and coming back out of them. And that's we've got to keep building hope that it's available, and that's my job.
So no competition for the rest of the offensive line. It sounds like it's still just the right guard, Alex Kappa and Jackson Powers-Johnson. Again, you heard what Pete Carroll had to say following the game, that they didn't want to put JPJ back out there. They didn't do any hitting. It was a short week, so they thought Kappa was the way to go. Me personally, I think at some point in the game, you would have realized, you know what, JPJ, you can't do any worse than those guys, so let's go ahead and put you out there. That's not what they chose to do. And again, coach is coach. Right, that's what they're paid to do, and they know a lot better than me. But I do think that they should at least open up the competition, since that's something that Pete Carroll has been preaching since the minute he took over as the Raiders head coach, that there's always competition. You're always fighting for your job. I think you would put a little fuel in the fire of those offensive linemen to do their job at a higher level. I also think that it wouldn't be bad exploring the thoughts of going back to what the offensive line was last year when it was the same five guys. They were just in different positions. Jordan Meredith was the left guard. You saw JPJ at the center position, and you saw Dylan Parham at the right guard spot when the O-line really started to come together. But as I had it explained to me on Monday from Justin Mello from the Draft Network, if they've already identified Jordan Meredith as best at the center position, maybe going back to him at left guard isn't the best idea. And they identified him as best at center because, his arms are shorter and his base is less. Right, he's not the biggest dude out there. So, okay, the way you can disguise that, the way that you can make up for that is going ahead and putting them at the center position. So that's why they have the guys in the position that they have them in right now. And as of right now, it sounds like they're going to stick with that. And the only change that may be coming is JPJ back at that right guard position. But at some point, whether it's now or later, shout out to the old school Candy, whether it's now or later, I think that they may have to explore going back to at least what worked, somewhat worked, a decent towards the end of the year last year, and put them back. Meredith at the left guard, JPJ at center, and you see Dylan Parham at the right guard spot. Obviously, the bookends are Colton Miller and DJ Glaze. Here's an interesting note from Warren Sharp Football. He was on Twitter, and he put out about the most expensive to the least expensive offensive lines in the National Football League in 2025. The Raiders have invested $32.6 million in the offensive line, and I should have said the Raiders have invested only $32.6 million in the offensive line, because that's good for 28th in the National Football League. The number one team is the Carolina Panthers. They've invested $95.3 million in their offensive line. As far as the AFC West goes, the Chiefs are second, $81.5 million. The Broncos are seventh, $62.3 million, followed by the Chargers at number 9 with $60 million. So big gap between the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Chargers and the Raiders. Now, this is what they have this year. As we talked about on Monday's show, there's not a new wholesale offensive lineman coming through, the doors at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. You heard Pete Carroll say it on Monday. This is what we got. This is who we're rocking with. So they've got to get through it and figure it out for this year. But I fully believe that the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 priorities should be the offensive line next offseason. And I hate to say the next offseason when you're only through 3 games and there's plenty of football needs to be played. Hopefully Jackson Powers Johnson can get back into the mix. He can be healthy. They can build that continuity, and you can start to see this offensive line look a lot better. But what we saw on Sunday was not a very good indictment of that offensive line. Now, I do have to go ahead, and I don't believe I did this on Monday's show because, it was so frustrating looking at what the offensive line did or did not do for the Raiders. I got to point out what Kirk Morrison said on my radio show on Monday. As a matter of fact, you'll hear a chunk of that coming up in segment number 2. Let's give Washington some credit, too. They've got some dudes along that defensive line. They got some dudes on the defense in general, right? Von Miller is going to have a gold jacket one day. Bobby Wagner, same thing. Deron Payne, roll tide, right? Really good player. So all those dudes can definitely get after the quarterback and put that kind of pressure on an offensive line. So, yeah, the offensive line wasn't great, but those dudes on the other side of the ball also had something to do with it. And like I said, I don't think I even gave them credit for that on Monday's show just because it was so frustrating to see the way that the Raiders went out there and performed, especially in a game that I felt like they had a better opportunity to win. I didn't think it was going to be a shoo-in that they were going to win it, but I felt like they had a better opportunity to win it with Jaden Daniels out. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the show, and that is 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients, 0 sugar, which means 0 crashes. What I love most is portable. They're portable. They're small, right? I put them in the little armrest in my car. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Matter of fact, sometimes when there's a long day at Allegiant, I'll put them in my backpack too and take them to the press box with me. They've got great flavors, plenty to choose from, quick, easy shot. Sometimes I even put it in the fridge and let it get a little bit of a chill to it. Then boom, pop it out. Quick, fast, in a hurry, and again, without there being any sugar, there is no crash, which is fantastic. So if you're enough with boring, flavorless caffeine, it's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Really want to talk about the biggest disappointment and reason for the disappointment from the performance from the Silver and Black on Sunday against the Commanders. And before we get into my reasons, not excuses, as you'll hear from my guy, Captain Kirk Morrison, Raiders color commentary. He was on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920 on Monday, and he's fantastic. He's a weekly guest and, is able to break down what he saw. And obviously, from a former player's point of view, it carries a lot more weight than just what I saw and what I break down sitting on my couch. So here's Captain Kirk when I asked him about the Raiders offensive line and the fact that Geno Smith was sacked 5 times and really was running for his life. And obviously Ashton Jeanty never had the big holes that, we would like him to see to be able to run through and have an opportunity to have some big runs. Again, 11 out of 17 of Jeanty's carries, there was a guy that met him at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. So only 6 times did he get the ball clean with an opportunity to actually run. So I asked Captain Kirk straight up, how can the Raiders go about cleaning this up? What went into their offensive line being as bad as it was? Check it out.
Yeah, this is what they get paid the big bucks for. Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, they're going to get this thing together. They'll figure some things out in terms of how they'll get the offensive line, but even just a pass pro. I tried to put a clip out. I think I'll still try to rework it, and I'll put the clip out on the 5 sacks on Geno Smith. I think what happens is people forget that the Raiders' offensive line is still coming together, and that's not the team that you need to go up against when you're still getting things together. It felt like yesterday people forgot that, Von Miller, that is a Hall of Famer. Bobby Wagner, 54, he's going to be wearing a gold jacket too. Deron Payne, that dude can play some football. So when you watch the game and you watch the film, you'll sit back and be like, wow, those are some really good players, and the Raiders did their best, but we just didn't have our best when it was really needed most. I'll put the clip out a little bit later, man, so you can see it, Q.
Okay.
But it was just some outstanding performances by some outstanding players, and the Raiders just couldn't really hang with, I thought, that front seven of Louisville, Bobby Wagner, Ken Law. I mean,
yeah,
I got to give a ton of credit to Washington, which I think nobody's giving credit to. It's all about the Raiders' offensive line and how bad. I said, dude, that is a good bunch there. They had a bad night in Green Bay a week ago. They got back home. They got back right. And I'm just telling you, everybody said, oh, Jaden Daniels is not playing. We're going to play against a backup quarterback. No. They played against a Heisman Trophy winner in Marcus Mariota, and they ran some of that old Chip Kelly, Oregon quarterback runs. Like, it was just totally different, Q. And I know I got to run, but I just, I'm so passionate about this stuff, man. And I get upset when I hear people saying, oh, man, we lost to Mariota and we lost to this.
Yeah.
You're not going to see quarterback runs the way you saw them with Mariota, with two pullers, okay? Look at the quarterbacks on the rosters for the rest of the season that the Raiders will be going up against. The only person that was going to have some trouble or would give the Raiders trouble and challenges would be Marcus Mariota because of the design quarterback runs, which really put, I thought, the Raiders defense in a challenging position because you had to cover the running back, you had to cover the quarterback. It was just difficult, man. And now you look at this week, Caleb Williams is not a threat to be a quarterback run call, right? That's not Patrick Mahomes. That's not going to be Cam Ward. That's not going to be Bo Nix. You're not going to get those types of plays. So this was a weekend that it was just a better game plan that I thought from Cliff Kingsbury that really had the Raiders rush defense kind of look just searching and not tackling well.
So I love what he said about reasons, not excuses. It's actually a segment that I do on ESPN Radio sometimes. Is it a reason or is it an excuse? And as I said many times on Monday's show, I'm not in the excuse-making business. So I get the short week. I get, there's a lot that goes into it, traveling east to west. Totally get that. Know that Jackson Powers-Johnson wasn't out there. So obviously your starting offensive line when you started the season is not what it was. But again, to me, when I said those out loud, it felt like more excuses. Now, Kirk broke down a few reasons, and they make sense. And again, a player that's been there, done that, knows what it's like. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. From my point of view, what was most disappointing about that performance from the silver and black, and I thought that Kirk brought up a great point, right? If you said when you looked at the schedule that they were going to be 1-2 after 3 weeks, that makes sense. And I'll look at it and say, hey, man, looking at the schedule, I think a lot of us thought that the Raiders were probably going to get blown out by the Commanders because they were so stinking good last year. The combination of them looking very normal against the Green Bay Packers, which, by the way, has a really good defense, and they put that on full display. But besides that, and then the fact that Jaden Daniels was out, I felt like it gave the Raiders a more even playing field. Now, I didn't say that guaranteed they were going to get a dub. I felt like that they were going to go there and find a way to win, but there was no way that I was overestimating or underestimating, I should say, Marcus Mariota and the Commanders. I still know that they're a really good team. And, oh, by the way, he's a really good quarterback, drafted number 2 overall 10 years ago for a reason. He's been hanging around the league for a reason, and he did have success last year when he stepped in for Jaden Daniels. But, again, it evens the playing field, in my opinion, not to mention they had a tight end out and they had one of their wide receivers out. But the Raiders in general just did not come to play, and that was shown by the initial kickoff return by Deebo Samuel. And as Kirk said on my radio show, he got that feeling like he got against the Chargers where Geno Smith threw that interception on the first play, and then all of a sudden, boom, Deebo Samuel makes that return just like he did on Sunday. It kind of makes you feel like, oh, here we go again, right? Playing from behind. And even though it wasn't a sudden change, it was a big-time momentum shift at the very beginning of the game for the Commanders, putting Uncle Mo squarely on their side. So that was the biggest reason for my disappointment, right? I feel like Geno versus Mariota is way more even of a matchup. As we talked how many times on this show when the schedule was out, how many times will Geno Smith be the best quarterback in this game? I think Geno and Marcus Mariota are much closer. Matter of fact, some would say that Geno is probably better than Marcus Mariota. Now, Marcus still has legs. He can use them. He obviously did on a few zone reads, but he's also he's very capable of turning the ball over, as he did. Thomas Booker knocked out that ball. Caillou Blue Kelly was able to pick it up. That's a nice little forced fumble and a fumble recovery, something that the Raiders don't do that often, but they were able to get that. And, he has moments where he throws the ball and he'll put it in harm's way and someone has to go make a play. So Geno versus Mariota, way better than Geno versus Jaden as far as I'm concerned. And not to mention, the defense was really strong through 2 weeks. And I know it was a small sample size, but they were only allowing 16 points a game and 70 yards on the ground per game. And they gave up 170 plus yards in the first half. To Washington. So, again, it was one of those games I didn't expect. I didn't expect a Pete Carroll-led team to go out and put a performance like that. He said it at his press conference on Monday. That's on him. He didn't prepare the team the right way that they were supposed to be prepared. He thought he was being smart by not putting too much on them, trying to save their legs for the game. And clearly, they just weren't ready to go, right? For one reason or the other. Short week, not enough work, didn't get lathered up enough. I don't know what it was, but obviously the travel had something to do with it. The short week, that 10 a.m. Pacific time kickoff, it just hasn't worked very well. And, even Pete Carroll alluded to the time off that the Commanders had as opposed to the time off that the Raiders had. He alluded to that on his Monday press conference, and I was actually surprised that he did that because I didn't think that he was going to allow that to be part of the conversation. Clearly, it affected the team more than I thought it was going to. Again, I've said it many times. I thought that they weren't going to be affected as much by it because it was early in the season and the players were still about as healthy as they could possibly be. Clearly, I was wrong. Sometimes that's going to happen, right? But with Kirk, what he had to say is, 1-2, okay, after 3 games. Now, all you have to do is clean it up, get back to Allegiant Stadium, bring in, and the Bears are coming in. They look good against the Cowboys, but so far everyone's looked good against the Cowboys because they've been giving up a lot defensively. So, if the Raiders can right the ship this week, all of a sudden after 4 games, you're sitting there at 2-2. I think all of us would take 2-2 after 4 games. I said that I had 4 wins for the Raiders by the time they hit their bye week, which is right after week 7 in the Kansas City Chiefs game. So they're on track for that, right? But now, obviously, the Colts, they're going to play Indy. The Colts right now are 3-0. The Titans, that looks like a favorable game for the Raiders. But, again, never underestimate any team on any given Sunday. Anything can happen. We saw the Browns beat the Packers on Sunday, and the Browns do have a really good defense. And, oh, by the way, the Raiders have to play them too. Right? So, again, they're still on track. They got to just handle their business. But if they handle their business on Sunday, and, of course, a lot of that's going to depend on what kind of offensive line shows up to play for the Raiders. If they handle their business, they're sitting there at 2-2, and none of us are talking about the sky is falling. None of us are flipping out and talking about how this team, same old Raiders, is like, hey, you know what? They're 500. They got themselves an opportunity. Right? That was a bad day at the office, bad day to have a bad day. So they all of a sudden lose 2 games in a row, one to a really good Chargers team and the other one to a good Washington Commanders team on a short week, and they were fully rested. So you can chalk that up. Again, they still have plenty of work to do. They've got to get that offensive line shored up. They've got to get back to the fundamentals, not missing tackles like they did. I mean, they had 4 big plays of over 40 yards on Sunday. Like, that can't happen. You can't have big explosives like that. On the ground, through the air, whatever the case may be, that just can't happen. That is embarrassing, and that is just attention to detail, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. They've got to be able to get back to that this week of work. We'll obviously get an opportunity to catch up with the coaching staff again on Wednesday when we're back out there at the facility. The Raiders were off today, so they're going to regroup, get some guys in the treatments and try to get their bodies right. And hopefully Jackson Powers Johnson will be back in the mix coming up on Sunday. It sounds like that's what they're going to do, but also it sounds like the only competition on that offensive line is at the right guard position. We'll see how long that lasts. But again, I think a calming voice in Kirk Morrison trying to explain and make it make more sense as, hey, look, the Raiders are only 1-2 on the season, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. They have a very winnable game against the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson coming to town. But with that being said, they could put up some big points as well. So this team is going to have to, clear this out of their mind and get back out there and play some really good, solid Raider football. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The NFL season is here. Matter of fact, 3 weeks is already in the books. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app any way that you want. Folks use FanDuel because they like any way they want to bet. Player props, building the same game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Again, you make the call on what you want to do. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays, to Mondays, to Thursdays. even college ball. So, are you ready to play? Of course you are. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Cy Reezy from the Bay, calling to ask not 21 questions like 50 Cent did back in the day, but ask 3 questions that he feels are the real questions that need to be answered about this team. Here he is, Cy Reezy from the Bay.
What up, Q? Man, Cy Reezy from the Bay, man. Hey, before we let a bad Raiders performance detract from some of your announcements, man. Congratulations on your first TV appearance. I don't know if it's your first TV appearance, but at least from what I understand, Locked On Raiders getting some TV exposure. And that's big. But, like all the Raider Nation, man, I got a ton of questions. I think we're all looking at this team with 21 questions, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep it to 3. So first question I got is, what has Brennan Carroll done to deserve the job that he has, besides being Pete Carroll's son? Because from what I know, he spent, I think, a couple of years in college coaching offensive lines at UW and Arizona, and neither one was really that good while he was there in terms of the offensive line performance. So why is he here? The second question is, why are they trying to fix what was not broken? Joe Philbin took this exact same group of offensive linemen and had them as a functional unit by the end of last season. Now, they weren't great, but they were a lot better than this dysfunctional unit we're watching right now. You know, Sincere McCormick had some pretty big runs behind that line. And there's already enough tape and enough analytics out there that shows that these players were better at the positions they were in before they came and shuffled everybody around, meaning Jordan Meredith did great at left guard. JPJ was obviously more comfortable at center. And Dylan Parham has always played better at right guard than he's played left guard, both in college and the NFL. The tape don't lie. So why are they trying to reshuffle this again? And the last question I have is, what happened to all the creativity in Chip Kelly's run game? For all we heard about his practices, for everything we saw at Ohio State, where's all the motions? Where's all the unique formations? What we're seeing is incredibly basic. And there's no way all these defenses are able to penetrate and hit the back in the backfield unless they know exactly where to go. So either it's just so basic that they can just tell, or they're actually doing something that's giving it away. Either way, they know what's coming, and they see it from a mile away, and they can shut it down before it even happens. So, anyway, that's what I got. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Cy Reezy, I'm out.
Cy Reezy, shout out to you, man. I like the 21 questions reference right there. That was a banger back in the day, wasn't it? But really good call, man. It's always great to hear from you. Thanks for the compliments on Locked On Raiders now being on TV here in Vegas, Fox 5, SSSEN. That's the Silver States Sports and Entertainment Network. Monday was the first day, and unfortunately, it was a bad performance that I was talking about. So people that got their eyes and ears on the show for like the very first time probably like, man, this guy, he's down in the dumps. He's negative. I don't know if I need this guy. So, probably wasn't the best debut show, but it is what it is. We got to talk about the way that the team goes. As far as your questions go, Brennan Carroll, yes, he's Pete's son. We know that. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversations about why he has the job. Should he have the job? Look, as a coach, he's been in, the league, the NFL, or college since 2004 at USC, also in the college ranks at Arizona and Washington as offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, assistant O-line coach in Seattle with Pete. Now he's the O-line coach with the Raiders, right? He's getting assistance from Joe Philbin, longtime vet. He was on the staff last year. I think that Joe can give some really good, leadership and help him out as well. I'm not ready just to sit there and say, oh, Brennan Carroll, you're the big issue of this whole thing. Lincoln Kennedy says it all the time. Players play, coaches coach. Right? Simple as that. You could put together the best game plan, but if you don't go out there and execute it, then it really doesn't matter. Right? I mean, it's just like anything else in any job that you have or whatever the case may be or you've ever had. Your boss could put you in the best position, but if you don't go out there and do what you're supposed to do, it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, just saying it's only been a 3-game sample size. So let's see how it all plays out and see how they continue to tweak this offensive line. Clearly, that needs to be done. They do have the same guys. They are in different spots. I suggested that earlier. Maybe at some point in this season, not right now. Maybe they'll be, willing to say, you know what, we tried this and this was the reason why we tried it. It didn't work out, so we're going to go back to what it was last year. But again, is Jordan Meredith best at center because of his short arms and his small base? Maybe. And if you have decided that the best position for him is at center so you can have JPJ on the field at the same time, all five, then maybe that's how you go. But, both Meredith and JPJ were on the field last year, just in different positions. So there's that. As far as Chip's offense, honestly, Cyrese, I don't think he's opened it up yet because I don't think he can. The Raiders can't do basic things right now. They're not running consistently. They're not protecting consistently. So I don't know how you get exotic. Right. I mean, and I get the idea, hey, man, let Chip call some really good plays to help get the ball out of Geno's hands and set up some really good offensive attacks. I don't think you can do that until you at least know that you can do the basics. It's like walking before you can run in, right? Running's fantastic, but if you can't walk, you're probably not going to run very well, right? I might have a plan about how you could run and do some good things, but if you can't walk consistently, then that's just kind of what it is, right? It's a process, and I've seen the Raiders. I've seen some of their play calling at practice and training camp. Granted, small sample size, but I've seen him open up the playbook. I just don't think right now this is a regular season, and the Raiders have shown what they've shown so far or what they haven't shown. I just don't think that he's comfortable calling all that right now. But again, we will see, and we'll talk to Chip this week as well, and we'll ask him about some of the play callings. We'll try to figure out the best way to ask without trying to give away, state secrets, if you know what I mean. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. I got a pretty lengthy text here from Raider Blood. He says, Q, Raider Blood checking in. As always, the pod hits the mark every day. Thanks for letting it be a part of your journey. I left a couple voicemails. 3 minutes fly by. Just to be sure, here's what I was trying to say. Watching this reminded myself it's only week 3, and the first 4-ish weeks are the new preseason. But it's also been week 3 for 25 years. No matter how many changes are made, new GM, head coach, OC, DC, town, owner, it's the same old, same old. Feels like Groundhog Day. This team has me arguing about concussions, careers, health, and car. Like, really? It's already been stated, and we've seen with our own eyes the offensive line isn't doing the job. So if you know this, as a coaching staff, shouldn't the passing game be short, quick reads and running the ball? Maybe they're calling it like that way, and Geno is just holding on to the ball too long. 17 rushes, not enough for Genty. Let's think about it from Chip's play calling perspective. While in college at OSU and Oregon, he could get away with passing almost every down, but not in the NFL. Balance is needed, preferably leaning on move rushing attempts. Michigan took away the passing game, made them one-dimensional last year against OSU, and beat them with a walk-on at quarterback. Something's got to change. Finally, me and the homie do a recap after every game. He brought up a serious question. We're in our 50s, and we've seen the glory days before we were teenagers. His question is, are we going to see this organization win one again in our lifetime? Honest answer, I don't know. Sure doesn't look like it. Sorry for the long text. Keep it going, Q, as always. Raiders. That's from Raider Blood. Very lengthy text. And, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? I tell my kids that, hey, the Raiders, commitment to excellence, just win, baby. That means something. Well, it hasn't meant anything that won the Lombardi since 83. And that's when I was just a little Q. Right at that point, I was only 7. I wasn't that invested. I'm not even going to try to lie to you and act like I was that invested in the silver and black at that stage. So my kids always hear the greatness of the Raiders. I talked about Kimani's game the other day, diehard Raider fan. You know why he's a diehard Raider fan? Because of this guy, because of me, right? My younger son, Keon Jr., little Q. He's overseas playing basketball right now, but he's all in on the Raiders, but because of me. So, again, they're waiting for the payoff, right? Anyone that knows me and has been influenced by me to be a Raider fan is waiting for the payoff. So it's just a work in progress. The good thing is, like you said, it's only week 3, and the first 4 weeks are really considered like the preseason. And even look at the Lions, man, what they did on Monday Night Football, right? The first week of the season, they got beat by Green Bay, and they looked pretty pedestrian. The last 2 weeks, they beat the brakes off the Bears, and then they beat the Ravens pretty handily on Monday Night Football. So scoring 17 points in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, teams will start to come around. You'll start to see teams improve. The thing is that the Raiders need to get their offensive line back in place, right? Alex Kappa, that experiment needs to go. He's just not very good. I know they gave him a 2-year contract as a free agent. I know that he's good for depth, but I think he's good for depth. If JPJ is available, he needs to be out there. There's no way he's not one of your best 5 offensive linemen. There's just no way, right? And I would argue he's probably your best 2 offensive linemen. Him and Colton Miller are probably the best 2 you have along that offensive line. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Chip Kelly's offense has always had a running game in it. It succeeded at Oregon. It succeeded at Ohio State in the passing game, but they've always had a rushing attack. Matter of fact, for Chip Kelly's offense to go and really be effective, it needs to have a rushing attack. But right now, you can't hand the ball to Genty 25 times because there's no blocking. The blocking's not getting it done, so you're just going to run him into the wall, and you're going to get him frustrated, and at some point, he's going to start questioning himself, hey, is this too much for me? Am I not going to cut it in the NFL? It was drafting me at number 6 too high, right? If he doesn't start thinking that, others will, because people are saying that now. I don't sign up for that. But again, if you're going to get a running back at number 6, you need to have attention to detail when it comes to the offensive line, something we talked about quite a bit during the draft process. So thanks for that text. Definitely appreciate you. Got a call from Reckless Raider in the 307 calling to speak on what Kirk Morrison said on Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920 on Monday about the team and the game that they played on Sunday, then speaks on what surprised him the most about that loss. Here he is, Reckless Raider in the 307.
Hey, Q. Reckless Raider out here in the 307. I really liked what Kirk Morrison had to say on Unnecessary Roughness. Like he said, relax, everybody. To his point, when the schedule came out, I predicted us to be 1-2 at this point because the Patriots were a 4-win team, and the Chargers and Commanders both made the playoffs. They're good teams. I know the Commanders were banged up, but they're deep. Mariota, he's a Heisman winner. I'd be ecstatic if he was our backup again. And we were a 4-win team. So you pair that with the extra rest the Chargers and Commanders had, it's going to make for a tough stretch. Of course, I want to win every game, but I think this was a reasonable expectation. We can't go from worst to first overnight. What I am disappointed about, though, is that I didn't expect the losses to be this way from a Pete Carroll squad. I was expecting us to beat the teams we're supposed to beat and go toe-to-toe with the tough ones, make them sweat, and maybe steal a couple at this stage. That being said, I've still got full faith in Coach Carroll. He put the blame squarely on his shoulders, didn't pass the buck. This is why we hired him. He's the kind of coach that can fix this. And Gino had a nice bounce-back game. That was good to see. So I'm still optimistic. That's all I got. Thanks, Q. Go Raiders.
Reckless, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, that's why I played the few minutes of Captain Kirk there in segment number 2, because he is spot on. And to say that, hey, you're 1-2 after 3 games. Most people looking at the schedule thought that, okay, they'd probably lose to the Chargers week 2 at home and probably follow that up with a loss to the Commanders. Again, the reason why it was a big disappointment for me is because the playing field I thought was more even once Jaden Daniels went out, once his tight end went out, once his wide receiver went out. And in fact, they went and put 41 points up on the silver and black and ran all over the team, right? Something that had not happened so far in the season through 2 games. So, again, they have an opportunity to go 500. They have to win on Sunday against the Bears. And then all of a sudden, okay, now you feel good about the direction that they're going. And I'm with you. I didn't expect the Pete Carroll-led team to have that kind of performance. But as you mentioned, he took the blame. He said, hey, that's on me. I didn't coach these guys up the way I was supposed to. And we got to do better than that moving forward. So, again, I had this team winning 4 games by the time they hit the bye week, which is right after their Week 7 game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see how close to that number they are, or maybe they're at that number by the time they wrap up with Kansas City. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. We'll close out with a text from David in East Los. Say, Q, I know that Will Hernandez isn't starting at Arizona, but damn, he can't be as bad as Alex Kappa. They need to put JPJ at center, move Dylan Parham back to right guard, and try Charles Grant at left guard. As for Jordan Meredith, he can be depth at the guard position. All I know is that games are won or lost in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Oh, and fire Brendan Carroll like yesterday and let Joe Philbin do his thing. That's David in East Los, and thanks for the text. Appreciate you. Look, Jordan Meredith was good last year at left guard. He might not be a well-oiled machine at the center spot, but he was good at left guard. If I was going to move anyone, I'd definitely put Meredith back at the guard spot, put Dylan Parham at the right guard spot, and put JPJ at center if I was going to do anything. Charles Grant out of William & Mary, the tackle, he's not ready to play this year. He's probably going to have to redshirt this year. Caleb Rogers is a guy that I'm interested in, but as Pete Carroll said, you heard him in segment number 1, the young guys aren't ready yet. And I do agree with that. It's only 3 games. They're going to need a little bit more work before they're ready to actually take over. So I don't know if it's Will Hernandez is the answer. I don't know if it's in-house is the answer. I just know that there's not a tree of great offensive linemen out there waiting for the Raiders to go, pluck 1 or 2 from and say, hey, here you go. Here you go to the offensive line and fix things up. That's why I said on Monday's show, I don't know if what they're working with is really fixable, correctable. They're going to have to just do the best that they can, kind of wing it, and that's really not the way that you want to go. But, again, got to fully invest in the offensive line. If you're going to have a rushing attack, you want to have a bully up front. You want to be able to run the ball when you want to run the ball. You want to be a strong physical team, and they're not that right now. Right? They're not physical enough on both sides of the ball, offensive line or defensive line. They need to get tougher in the trenches. Well, the Raiders need to make sure that they invest into the trenches and make especially that offensive line much more of a bully. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Got a call from Raider Jim in the Pacific Northwest we'll get to tomorrow. A text from my guy Johnny Raider we'll get to tomorrow. And don't forget, we got the Raider Squad Show with Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself this morning at 7:30 Pacific time. We had to push it back extra day because I had a dentist appointment on Monday. But, of course, we'll recap the game on Sunday. We'll talk about the offensive line because why wouldn't we? JPJ in particular. We'll talk about the offense, Genty, Trey Tucker, and his big day that he had. Again, that got overshadowed by just a bad performance. But, man, 8 catches, 145 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Breakout game for Trey Tucker. If he could become a reliable target for Geno Smith consistently, then you could be onto something. And, we got to talk about the defense as well. So that'll come up on the Raiders Squad Show with Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself starting at 7:30 a.m. this morning. Of course, 1 hour long, 1 hour strong, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, that's where we'll have it. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.